Hello, everybody, and welcome to my draft analysis of the literally titled Fun Partner League that I entered with my friend Raul, or Jesus47. We were blessed enough to get the first round draft pick in this league, and that was fantastic. That meant that although we went last in the second round, we did get first in the third round, so we would get two picks in a row, every pick after the first pick. And for our first pick, we took Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is absolutely fantastic Pokemon. Um, it's great for grabbing momentum and hits incredibly hard. It has lots of sets it can run, from Z move to physical to Scarf to Specs to Life Orb to Calm Mind. It can do anything. It has a fantastic move pool. Gets Defog, gets Brave Bird, even screens, and U-turn, which is really nice to gain momentum even on things that are intending to block its Volt Switch. So something that Tapu Koko does incredibly is outspeeds almost all offensive Pokemon. There are a few that outspeed Koko, but the vast majority of offensive Pokemon are outsped by Tapu Koko, and Tapu Koko hits hard enough to kill the vast majority of offensive Pokemon, especially if they've been whittled a little bit. So Tapu Koko tends to draw in very fat Pokemon to stop it, because the very fast Pokemon really can't take it on. And with its ability to Volt Switch out on fatter Pokemon, because the fast Pokemon are threatened out and forces the opponent to switch into fatter Pokemon, Tapu Koko naturally pairs with Wall Breakers very well, who can come in and break and claim kills on the fatter Pokemon that Koko forces in. So we immediately went into in search of a very strong wall breaker after we grabbed Tapu Koko in the first round. Initially, or immediately, we went to Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black is one of the best wall breakers in the game, being able to be having a whopping, I believe, 170 attack and respectable 110 attack, if I'm getting my numbers right. Somewhere in those ballpark, not ballpark, but its stab is very hard. It gets Bolt Beam coverage with incredibly like with Physical Fusion Bolt and Special Ice Beam, plus Earth Power, just all the coverage you'd really ever need. Hidden Power Fire if it really needs it too. There's very few things I can switch in on Kyurem and beat it. It's incredibly powerful. It always claims a kill, and Fusion Bolts get powered up by Tapu Koko's terrain, which is even better. But unfortunately, Tapu Koko did end up getting taken before he got back around to us. So we went in search of different wall breakers, and we got Mega Medicham. Mega Medicham is also a fantastic wall breaker. Almost nothing switches in on it. It hits obscenely hard. Yeah, its coverage is, in terms of stab, is very good too. Only Psychic can take on its stabs, and even then, there aren't too many very strong or like bulky Psychic types. It's just incredibly powerful in general. Just with the pure power plus, it's already very decent attack. It's incredibly hard to switch in on, and Thunder Punches from it get powered up by Koko, which allow it to take on things that traditionally wall it, like Skarmory, Celesteela, some bulky waters that can threaten it with a Scald. Things like that. Even even the Psychic types that usually stop it, unless they're extremely bulky, have trouble with it if with boosted Thunder Punches, because they effectively become stab under terrain. So yeah, Mega Medicham's one of the best wall breakers in the game. Almost nothing switches into it, and its speed really isn't bad for being so powerful. Now, it was our Mega Slot, but I don't think it's wasted at all. It's incredibly powerful, and it even gets good priority and Fake Out plus Bullet Punch. So yeah, that's Medicham. Also, we decided to go with another wall breaker initially. We wanted to get very high quality offensive Pokemon right off the bat, and we picked up Mamoswine. Now, Mamoswine is very powerful. It does not have that obscene raw power levels that Medicham does. But what Mamoswine does have is the typing to synergize with Koko. Now, Mamoswine is something that is extremely difficult to switch in on. Differently than Medicham, Medicham is just so powerful that nothing wants to switch in on it, just due to its power. Mamoswine does its work through its typing. There are very few teams that have good answers to ice plus ground coverage. There's almost nothing that resists both. It's like Rotom Wash. That's it. And with ground ice coverage, you tend to hit so much of the metagame super effectively. And there's very few things that can switch in on it. Because, well, its typing synergizes even better with Tapu Koko. Its typing was already very good offensively, but with Tapu Koko it becomes even better. Because Tapu Koko threatens out most offensive Pokemon and makes the opponent tend to need to go into a more defensive Pokemon to stop it. So what are the defensive Pokemon that, types of defensive Pokemon that will come in on Tapu Koko? Well, there's these things that resist electric. That's ground, electric, dragon. Tell me what ground, electric, dragon, and grass. Now tell me what ground, electric, grass, and dragon all are weak to from stab. And it's Mamoswine. So the fat Pokemon that will be brought in by Koko are all going to be very heavily pressured by Mamoswine, and the opponent will be very hard pressed to find something that switches in well into Mamoswine. Like it comes in on your grass, ground, dragon, whatever you brought in Koko. It fires off an Icicle Crash, which is extremely powerful already. 130 attack. Yeah, 130 attack. Very powerful, but like you can't go into your steals because they're just gonna get hit by an earthquake the next turn. Like unless they're Scizor with the bullet punch to scare it out, or different secondary typing. But even then, there's very few things that have that typing it needs to take both and to come in on ice move or ground move and then not take the other. It needs to either be faster to scare it out, but most things that are faster than Mamoswine really do not appreciate taking the hit from Mamoswine. So, Mamoswine is an incredibly powerful breaker paired with Koko, and has a good priority in Ice Shard. I think priority is always nice on a draft team. So we have priority in Fake Out, Bullet Punch, Ice Shard, and even more in our next picks, Metagross and Vaporeon. So at this point in the draft, most of the tier 1s had been kind of taken. Most teams did not have room for another tier 1. And so we decided we wanted to pick Hydreigon for one of our free picks. We decided we're going to hold off on the pick though, because there were very few people who could even possibly take a tier 1 at this point. I think all tier 1s were taken. It would have to be free. And even then, most people had already taken their free tier 1s. And Hydreigon isn't a particularly valuable tier 1 either. So we felt pretty safe holding off and picking Hydreigon, even though we thought we really needed it. Hydreigon has Levitate to help it switch in on things that are going to be coming at Koko, particularly ground moves. And it also starts to form a Fairy Dragon Steel core, which is one of the strongest cores you can form defensively with Koko. So we decide we're going to pick Hydreigon later on and pick everything else accordingly. So we decided for this core we're going to need a good steel type, and we'd already gone heavy on tier 1s and 2s, so you need a solid tier 3 or 4 steel type. That kind of narrowed it down to things to Metagross or Bronzong, and both are good, but I tend to like my Pokemon to have more of a offensive presence on the field, while Bronzong certainly has better abilities, maybe even a bit more utility than Metagross. Metagross has the raw power to do more than what Bronzong could. I think the Bronzong's main claim over Metagross is its abilities, which is certainly big advantage, and its abilities are fantastic. But Metagross was more appealing due to its strength. So, Metagross is just a fantastic steal. Really, the only thing I can complain about it is no way to reliably recover. Like, besides leftovers is the best thing it gets. No leech seed or recover or any form of healing. It's just got to rely on leftovers of berries, basically items. Actually, it doesn't get rest. Like, rest is not a very. It does get rest as recovery, and that's about it. And rest is by no means a reliable recovery. However, it can be useful in some scenarios. So, for our Fairy Dragon Steel Core, we want Hydreigon. Hydreigon's certainly not a fantastic defensive Pokemon, but in terms of Dragon typing, it definitely gets the job done. It resists electric, fire, grass, water, ghost, psychic, ground, tons of resistances. Its typing's really good. Its stats are okay. They get the job done, but it's by no means bulky, but I don't think it necessarily has to be. Most dragons aren't bulky. However, Koko as a fairy type is not a super bulky fairy. It's not a defensive Pokemon at all. It can take a hit. It can come in and take a fighting hit, a dark hit, and, do okay with it, but it definitely doesn't want to. So, along with Metagross, we wanted to grab a good fairy type, and we decided that Florges in Tier 3 would be fantastic for that, for a good defensive fairy. And it was really, at this point in the draft, the only decent fairy left. I think Primarina might have still been around. I'm not sure, though. But even then, Primarina does not have reliable recovery. But Florges is an absolutely fantastic defensive fairy in Tier 3. And its great Spidef complements Metagross because Metagross is great defense. So they complement each other, one being a good physical while the other being special. But both of them still being solidly bulky in the other compartment. However, Florges did end up getting sniped from us, so we had to go looking elsewhere. So, as a backup to Florges for this pick, we went to Mantine. Mantine because it gave us another ground immunity along with Hydreigon, which is nice to have because Metagross is weak to it and Koko's weak to it. And it comes in and beats the ground types that Koko would have a problem with, that Mamoswine doesn't necessarily want to switch in on either, especially if it's a ground type that's Scarf or faster than Koko. But unfortunately, Mantine ended up getting sniped from us too. I did have one small problem with Mantine though. That being, Koko did power up electric moves against it, but I don't think it was so big a deal that it couldn't be on the team. So we ended up going to another option in Vaporeon. Vaporeon's immune to water, which is fantastic because at this point our water resist was Hydreigon, which definitely is not an extremely solid one. I think bulky water is really essential to have on a draft team. I think they're just a fantastic resource to have, and they do a lot. And Vaporeon is no exception. Scald to get rid of physical attackers. Heal Bell is incredibly useful. Haze is incredibly useful to prevent setup. Roar, screens, wish passing, and it has incredible HP for some really, really fat wishes to pass. So it had a lot of utility and good special defense, similar to how Florges had, to complement Metagross. Very good special bulk. So it's a fantastic Pokemon. And reliable recovery and wish. So, yeah. We ended up going with Metagross and Vaporeon. We did not end up getting the defensive fairy that we wanted. We still have Koko, but it's definitely not a defensive fairy. But by no means is Vaporeon a weak Pokemon, and it can definitely help us out. So we would end up needing more dark resist and fighting resist elsewhere, because we would be lacking that fairy type for the core. So we immediately began to make up with it with our next pick in Virizion. Virizion resists dark and is a grass type. Grass type is always useful to have because Zygarde 50 exists, and if you don't have a grass type against a Zygarde 50, you're going to have a bad time. Or even Zygarde 10, but I don't think anyone drafted it. But Virizion is really nice because of its speed tier, 108. It bridges the gap between Koko and Medicham, meaning things that are faster than Medicham but slower than Koko cannot run Modest or Adamant Natures and hit harder without being punished for it and being thereafter slower than Virizion. So Virizion pressures things in that range to be faster than it or risk getting revenged by it or something. It's also good dark resist. Like I said, fantastic special defense, which similarly to how Metagross and Vaporeon complement each other, this complements our next draft pick, as you'll see. So yeah, specializing in special defense and having 90-90 attack and special attack is very good because it's difficult for the opponent to prep for because each side is equally viable. So in making an answer for Virizion, you're not sure which side to prepare for necessarily. Fighting type is also nice offensively along with grass. The quad weakness to flying isn't great, but we do have Koko and Metagross for solid resists to it. So yeah. Next up, we picked Gligar. And Gligar is incredibly bulky on the physical side, especially with an Eviolite. It does have the quad weakness to ice, and our team is definitely weak to ice at this point. But it does offer another ground immunity to help out with Koko, and a fighting resist, another fighting resist to help out with our lacking of a fairy. So Gligar is just incredibly good physically defensively, and even specially defensively. It can definitely do okay. It gets Defog and Stealth Rock, giving it some really good utility. Immunity gives it some more utility and a status absorber. It's just a very solid tier 4 Pokemon. So for our next draft picks, we finally went out and picked Hydreigon because we were a hair worried that someone else might be trying to get it later, but I don't think everyone was. But we weren't necessarily sure what we wanted at this point either. So we picked Hydreigon. I've already gone over the reasons why we wanted that. But then after that, we picked Floatzel. Picked Floatzel because we wanted something in the speed gap between Virizion and Koko. So basically things to keep things in like the 120 range-ish. Things in the 120s that Koko just outspeeds from being able to be Adamant or Modest for free. Because things that are hit 130 cannot be Adamant or Modest and still outrun Floatzel. So nothing unless they're like Mega Aerodactyl or Mega Sceptile will be able to run Adamant or Modest against our team for free. Like maybe in lower speed tiers that I missed, but most relevant offensive threats that are decently fast are not able to. As Swift Swim, no one has a rain team though, so it's not going to come for that much use. Water Veil is very nice. Makes it a very good switch into bulky waters. It has a great move pool. Aqua Jet priority is fantastic. Its attack is solid, but its speed is definitely what we wanted it for. Water typing helps out with our ice weakness. Its bulk is definitely not great, but once again, we're more after it for its speed. It can actually baton pass bulk ups. I did not mean to put that on. And its move pool is definitely decent. Once again, yeah, priority, ice coverage, and it can definitely be mixed if it wants to. It gets Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, Focus Blast, which is incredible coverage, and even agility to go for sweeps. So yeah, it's a very good value tier 5, I thought. To hit that speed tier we needed, give us an extra water type that's definitely more on the offensive side. It can definitely catch some opponents off guard. But mainly to bridge that speed gap, like I said, and hit that speed tier. Next, I felt that our team was, at this point, was very weak to fairy. Actually, at this point, I think our only resist to fairy is Metagross, which is definitely not great. Now, fairy is not a common type at all, and very good fairies are hard to come by. But it's definitely not a good idea to rely on Metagross solely to take on fairies. So Muckalola, although it doesn't resist fairy, fairies don't do particularly well against it. Poison, its poison typing allows it to scare them out well, and it's bulky enough to take on most fairies. There are very few physical fairies out there. So yeah, this poison typing allows it to really come in on and scare out fairies. It has a very good move pool. Clear Smog is super useful. Acid Spray is super useful. Fire Blast, Fire Punch, Flamethrower, Gunk Shot, Poison Jab, Power Punch. It gets an incredible amount of useful moves. It usually doesn't want to be special though, because special attack is way worse than its attack, but can definitely make it work, especially with the help of Acid Spray. And Clear Smog is a very nice move just to avoid setup. Has two great abilities in Gluttony and Poison Touch. Gluttony allows it to recycle, or allows it to eat its berry early, meaning it can run a half HP restoring berry and actually recover itself reliably, and it learns recycle to synergize with that, meaning it can have incredible longevity. It can also run Poison Touch if it wants to, and definitely get a lot of poisons off, especially with a move like Poison Jab. With that Poison Touch stacking on it, it has an incredibly high poison chance. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a berry set. It can run Curse too, which it does very well with, and possibly Sweep, especially if it runs enough special defense. And its special defense is very solid. It can also run things like Assault Vest. It's just a very good Pokemon and helps us out with fairy weaknesses. And lastly, we drafted Incineroar. At this point, we wanted a fire type because we had none on our team. So we came down to this or Delphox. Now, Delphox did have the advantage of resisting fairy, so that we could have an extra fairy resist, but it definitely is not an incredibly solid fairy resist, and Incineroar was also left at this point. And although typing wise I think Delphox did fit the team a bit better, Incineroar did, I think, is just a better Pokemon all around. Intimidate is absolutely fantastic, especially on Incineroar, who has very decent physical bulk. Its typing is very good defensively, helping it out with a lot, especially things like Victini. It can't be burnt as a physical attacker, which is also nice. But it can also be a special attacker if it wants to. It gets a lot of really nice moves, including Fake Out, meaning it has even more priority for our team. It gives Nasty Plot. I didn't even know it got Nasty Plot. But a lot of good utility moves: Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, U-Turn, Knockoff. And great moveset: Earthquake, Endeavor. Great moveset. It can do a lot. It's not an easy Pokemon to prep for, and it's definitely something they can use to check a lot of different things. Although its speed isn't great, Intimidate makes it into a very strong physical wall. And I think it's just a great value pick for we needed a fire type, and it's just a very strong fire type, especially for a tier 4. I think tier 4 is not accounting for its, when it was placed in tier 4 and it did not have Intimidate and it wasn't accounting for that. And the ability to have Intimidate makes it a very valuable pick for a tier 4 Pokemon, especially when we needed a fire type. So I definitely like the team we drafted, and I definitely look forward to using it.